Hey everyone, I'm Tassenix, and welcome to another mod guide. Today we're going to be covering basically the filler characters for the BKM squad. They can be used in other places, and I'll try and account for that, but we've covered already the four main characters, the four core characters in my opinion, for the Bo-Katan Mando squad. That is BKM, IG-12 and Grogu, Paz Vizsla, and Bo-Katan Kryze. So I've got my squad tab up here. I'm showing you these characters in the desired turn order. And just as a brief recap here, so there's your core four. In 3 versus 3, of course, your core 3 is going to be IG-12 faster than BKM, faster than Paz. Those are going to be your mainstay. But as far as 5-man, there's always the question of this last character. So we're going to talk about if you have Bam in there versus Armor versus Sabine. So we'll talk about how these are applied a little later in the video, but just as a brief reminder, I'm not going to read through the full ability. I've definitely covered this in every other character's video and, of course, BKM's video in great detail. But the bottom line is that for any of these characters, light side Mandalorians are going to get 40% defense, max health, and offense. They're going to stack defense over the course of the fight and true damage through Ancestral Resolve. And in Grand Arena, with the Omicron applied, they also get an additional 50% mastery, max health, and 30 speed. So if you're adding it up, that's a total of 90% max health handed out in Grand Arena. So generally speaking, under BKM lead, if you have to choose between a protection or a health primary, you're probably better off going with health. All right, first up, let's talk about Bam. So we can see here in terms of turn order, it's going to be IG-12 over Grogu, over Bam, over BKM, over Bo-Katan Kryze, over Paz. We want Bam to be faster than Bo-Katan because he has discipline set up to get himself ready for the birds. And then Bo-Katan, her third ability is what the AI will use. That'll do a mass assist, feed him the 20 birds, and then the Omicron specifically will give him a bonus turn, allowing him to just launch off and pop somebody in the face. So just a brief review of his kit. Protective Intuition gives him immunity to ability block. He also has plus 40% potency and tenacity. The first time each scoundrel ally falls below 75% health, Bam dispels all debuffs on himself, gains 1 stack of Whistling Birds, takes a bonus turn, and the cooldown of Wonder of the Force is reset. So on the Bam team, or sorry, the BKM team in particular, only Bam and Grogu will trigger this effect. They're the only ones that are actually scoundrels. All right. Now, if you're using him outside of BKM, his leadership's exceptional. It's going to fit with the modding profile I'm going to recommend regardless. He just is a beneficiary of max health, max protection, and offense. And whenever an enemy takes damage under his leadership, scoundrel allies gain 2% turn meter. There's a neat combos that you can do with different scoundrel teams there, but that exceeds the scope of what we're talking about. All right. Covering his basic real quick, Death Strike does physical damage to target enemy and inflicts damage over time for 3 turns. If they were already debuffed, hit again. Great. Discipline setup. Right. So he gains 1 stack of Whistling Birds for each enemy, and then he may only use Swift Takedown the next time he uses an ability. Until he uses that, he can't assist or counterattack. He ignores Stealth and Taunt, and gains 1 stack of Whistling Birds whenever an enemy takes damage. So that's when you're doing damage to them on your turn, or if they have something like damage over time on them, whenever they start their turns, that would also cause him to gain a stack of Whistling Birds. Whistling Birds last as a buff on him until Swift Takedown is used or until he's defeated, and Whistling Birds deals true damage to target enemy for each stack when using Swift Takedown. We'll see more detail about that when we read Swift Takedown, but next up is Wonder of the Force. Dispel all debuffs on all scoundrel allies and equalize their protection. All scoundrel allies recover 20% protection. Remove 20% turn meter from all enemies, which can't be evaded, though it can be resisted. Bam and target other scoundrel ally gain damage immunity for 1 turn, can't be copied, dispelled, or prevented, and tenacity up for 2 turns, and this ability starts on cooldown. So like I said, this can be used to save himself or Grogu, essentially. It's not going to trigger off anybody else. And then the defining ability of his kit, Swift Takedown. Inflict healing immunity for 2 turns on all enemies, deal physical damage to them, all enemies, and lose 1 stack of Whistling Birds for each enemy damaged in this way. Deal true damage to target enemy for each stack of Whistling Birds. If target enemy is defeated by this ability, the remaining birds will be assigned to the weakest remaining enemy. And this ability can't be countered or evaded, and enemies defeated by it can't be revived. So yes, these birds cascade. You know, if it overkills the first enemy, it'll go to the next weakest. If it overkills that one, it'll go to the next weakest. It's kind of like that. It's pretty neat. All right, so this ability can only be used immediately after discipline setup. So on to the mods. I really strongly favor having him in an offense set. If you can pull off really high offense in some type of speed set or some other type of modding, that's fine, but it's going to be easiest to be done in this. Now my guy's Relic 9, he's 12,500 offense. If I really tried, I could probably push it closer up towards 13. I think I've even had him up there before. But like Relic 8, maybe you can get something around 12,000, 12,500. Scale the amount of offense you can get based on your actual relics. But, you know, the offense is something that you want a lot of to take full advantage of the true damage from the birds. Because true damage can never critically strike, so you feed into it with as much offense as possible. Most important, though, over the offense is the speed. Now, mine is 301 only because my BKM is 300. What's really important is that he's at least 1 faster than BKM, if you're going to use him here. Now, as his own leadership, you might want to have his speed clocked differently depending on, you know, if you're using him with Queel. There's some additional consideration. You want him to basically be 75% of the speed of Queel to gain the maximum benefit of his turn meter gain. Again, exceeds our scope. For BKM, at least 1 faster, as much offense as possible, and then you can kind of argue about whether or not you want a fast offense primary here. If you can get away with it, I would definitely take that for Arrow. That would be even more offense. And then for survivability primary, yeah, it doesn't matter too much. Maximizing for health under BKM lead is great, but for any other application of BAM, I think the protection primary is better. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it. Whatever's going to be fast and with more percent offense is probably the way I go. Okay. Next character on deck is going to be Armor. Now, Armor wants to be pretty much the fastest character on the team, not relative to any other character's particular turn order so much as we want her, if she's on defense with this team, she's going to use her mass assist ability first, so we want her to come back around to placing that fat stack of Beskar armor just as soon as she can. So that's why I'll have her so fast. All right, let's get into her real quick. And about her kit, first time another ally falls below 60% health, Armor gains a stack of Beskar armor ingot, and that ally recovers 40% protection. The armor starts with 2 stacks of Beskar ingot. All right, her leader, we're really not going to go into too much. It's pretty mediocre, but if you had Mandalorians and had to use them somewhere, this isn't one of the worst ways to go. Her basic, deal physical damage to target enemy twice. If the target has Armor Shred, the armor gains 1 stack of Beskar ingot, max of 3. All right. Earn Your Signet defines what this does, what Beskar armor does. The armor loses all stacks of Beskar ingot and grants target other ally a tier of Beskar armor equal to the number of stacks of Beskar ingot removed until the end of the encounter, which can't be copied, dispelled, or prevented. This ability can't be used if the armor has no stacks of Beskar ingot, or if the target's tier of Beskar armor won't be increased. And what does each tier give? Beneficial effects build based on the cumulative number of stacks. At 1 stack, target has plus 50% defense and plus 15% max health. At 2 stacks, this character will recover 30% protection at the end of their turn. And with 3 stacks, They have plus 100% counter chance and can't be critically hit. This is nasty to have on BKM herself. You might think to put this on pause first, and maybe there's a number of fights where there could be, I could see a strategic argument for why you might do that. But as a first move, I would think it best to just put it on BKM, because as she's ramping and gaining true damage over the fight, if they should hit her, those back slaps from this 100% counter chance, brutal. Brutal. All right, this is the way. Her second special. Inflict armor shred on target enemy until end of battle. Call all Mandalorian allies, including herself, and allies with Beskar armor to assist, dealing 10% less damage. So, because this applies the armor shred first, and then she calls herself among the rest of the Mandos to assist, this basic effect will trigger and move her from the base stacks of 2 Beskar ingot to 3. That's, again, why we want her to be so fast. So that she can come around and place Beskar, hopefully, on BKM. But as far as the mods herself, speed. We want her to be very, very fast. As fast as you can comfortably make her for the purpose we said. Speed arrow, of course. In terms of maximizing her survivability under BKM, you would ideally want triangle and circle to both be health primaries. But again, like Bam, if you're applying her outside of this, let's say you like to use your armor with Slacker or with Sith Eternal, something like that, she'll probably gain the most survivability strictly from having protection primaries. Again, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it. It's more about having the speed. And ideally, some tenacity would be cool too, because I do encourage a tenacity cross, whatever tenacity you can bake into the other mods. You could easily argue for a 2-piece of tenacity if you're really trying to push the number up there. The importance of tenacity is that when it is her turn, we really want armor to go. In particular, those first 2 turns of hers are the justification for her whole existence. So it would really suck if on either of those occasions she were stunned or otherwise incapacitated. We try and give her as much resistance to that as possible. Okay, last but never least, let's jump in to Sabine. So, where we're going to use her, this is where you don't want to use BAM or armor in the comp. Let's say you wanted to use armor like I suggested with a different GL, and maybe you want BAM to be his own standalone team. Okay, well you can throw in Sabine. For the turn order, of course, it's still going to be Grogu over BKM. I like Sabine going next here because she's going to put down Stagger, an AoE Stagger, ideally, with her third ability. We'll cover it in a second. And then Bo-Katan Kryze will throw her AoE, which would ideally trigger all those Staggers, dispel all their buffs, maybe daze them all. You know, you can make a real problem for it with that. And then Paz Vizsla last. So, let's go into her kit. Her unique, Take It Back, says Sabine has plus 25% crit chance and critical damage. That is why I mostly made the effort to put her in a crit damage set. To have the turn order, which I think is more important, if you put her in speed or offense or something else, I could accept that. It's mostly about when she's doing her stuff than how hard she's doing her stuff, okay? Alright, her basic, Blasters Akimbo. Deal physical damage to target enemy twice. This attack scores an additional hit for each of the following if the target has less than 70% turn meter, has less than 30% turn meter, or if the target is debuffed. So a potential of 5 hits. Hits after the first deal 75% less damage. So this could mostly be argued to be beneficial. Actually, I don't know. I don't think this makes a big difference in the match. It's nice though. Alright, her next special, Darksaber Strike. Deal physical damage to target enemy and inflict armor shred for the rest of the battle. This means that between her and BKM on the team, you have 2 sources of armor shred, which means that you're continuously renewing taunt on Paz Vizsla. I think that actually when you're feeding him stacks of taunt, they're getting converted to resilient defense, which I think at a certain number is getting converted into heat and overheat. You're basically pushing his kit, just helping your team by getting armor shred onto the field. So it's a great reason for her to be here. But this is the real gem. Her second special, Demolish. Deal physical damage to all enemies, stagger them for 2 turns, and expose target enemy for 2 turns. For each active Mandalorian and Phoenix ally, this deals an additional 15% more damage and exposes a random enemy for 2 turns. So both that added damage and the extra expose are tied to that for each. So the potential exists. You can, do high damage and put expose on the entire team in addition to stagger, right? That's pretty hideous, all right? Mandalorian and Phoenix allies then gain critical chance up and offense up for 2 turns. The entire team loves this. This is fantastic. If this attack scores a critical hit, probably will, reduce Sabine's cooldowns by 2. This attack can't be countered or evaded. So her AI, I think, is going to use this first, I want to believe. If not, whatever, so much the better, because this would push both abilities back around sooner. But it can't be countered or evaded. So that justifies our turn order. We get this AoE stagger out on the field, and then if you saw my Bo-Katan Kryze video, her AoE would be the next thing to come, trigger all those delicious staggers, right? So as far as the mods, we kind of have an intuition on how we want to do this. We want to have enough potency to be dangerous, right? The minimum that I would say for any attacking character should be about 100%. To that effect, I'm a little constrained on potency crosses here, and so I have less than 100. I'm not super proud of this. I would make this a potency primary if I could, but decent potency besides, it'll do. It'll do, but more potency is better, okay? The turn order is correct. She's faster than my Bo-Katan Kryze. That is the critical thing. You probably are going to be doing this in a speed arrow of some kind. If you're crazy enough to be able to pull this off in some type of offense arrow, fine, but that's a real stretch goal. Crit damage, triangle, of course. Let's take advantage of that built into her. Again, potency cross would be ideal. I have an offense here with a decent chunk of potency. I guess it's the next best thing, but you really want to hit that at least 100% to make sure that you have the best odds of your staggers applying, which is so nice. Again, the primary here for this circle is protection on her, but under BKM, ideally health, doesn't matter a ton. Turn order's key, a little bit of offense. And yeah, that basically wraps it up. So as far as applications go, how do I use all of these things, you might be wondering? I think as a default position on defense, I would first be looking to see where I could get away with this 4-man. If I felt like I needed the survivability afforded by armor, and I felt like I really needed to take advantage of Beskar armor in particular, then I would go ahead and take her along. That would be one way to go. If I needed the added damage, if I thought that, the BKM team ramps true damage over the course of the fight. So the longer the fight goes, the better the entire team is at closing it out, right? So as far as a vulnerable point in the fight, you're weakest earliest. To that end, BAM offers an incredible upfront punch, right? So if you were taking on a matchup where you were worried about maybe I could lose earlier on in the fight, I don't know, certain Darth Vader, Lord Vader compositions, or if you were really afraid of taking on something like a Seer Malicos, and you wanted to make sure you just got to blow up Malicos kind of off rip, whatever other kind of matchup you're thinking of, BKM favors going against teams that want to debuff her and her allies. So kind of think from there. But if you really needed the extra punch, BAM can deliver that for you. And then if you didn't see yourself needing either of these cases, that's where Sabine comes in. She fits in your turn order. She preserves all of your, effects for being a light side Mandalorian. And you have the opportunity there to, inflict stagger on the enemy in addition to a significant chunk of damage, push back their turn meter with Bo-Katan right after, and then, not to mention, armor shred to boot. So that's a lot of fun. All right, guys, we have successfully wrapped up the Mandalorian faction. I have some ideas on what I'm going to do next, but of course, your comments guide the way. This all started from a request from a patron, and I'm kind of, going where the wind is carrying me. I think I'm probably going to do the Seer Malicos team next, but if you want to put your suggestion in the hat, so to speak, about what faction I cover next, please share that in the comments. If you've enjoyed these videos, of course, drop a like on it, hit subscribe to see more. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, it's been real. It's been awesome. It's been real awesome. Take care.